Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not surprised I'm let down, but I'm not surprised that this government wants to limit debate when we have a Prime Minister standing in the House of Commons and making jokes about whether or not Canada is in breach of international law, while we are possibly putting people in harm's way. We find out later that day that the Conservatives had to tweet that they were going to send a letter to the United Nations because they hadn't even bothered to do that. Now we have to ask ourselves, we hear from this government about our allies and the Allied coalition, and yet it's a fiction. Because this is not a UN mandate, it is not a NATO mandate, there is no Western country other than the United States involved. That we see that according to anybody who looks at the situation in Syria, they say that Bashar al-Assad is the head of the snake and ISIS is its tail. That in Kobani, our allies, the PPK, were considered as fanatical as ISIS. That we're looking at our allies, the so-called allies that Canada has in Syria right now, who are actually doing the bombing and fighting in Syria, that Joe Biden had admitted that all those allies that this minister is cozying up to were actually fighting a proxy Sunni-Shia war in Syria. So I'm not surprised that with the misinformation and the misrepresentation that we've seen from that government and from that minister in particular, that they would not want to debate this. But the question is who are the allies on the ground that will ensure that we actually prevent further damage to a nation that is already seriously damaged, and whether or not we are in any way following international law, because they didn't bother to get in mandate.